Imagine waking up in a mansion, with every luxury at your fingertips, and choosing to walk away from it all. Not for another rich person, but for someone with literally nothing. What would compel a woman to leave her billionaire husband for a homeless man? This isn't a fairy tale, it's a raw, unfiltered story of what happens when love defies every expectation. My name is Emily, and for years, people looked at my life and saw perfection. I was the wife of a billionaire, Daniel Whitmore, a man who had everything: power, fame, and influence. We lived in a mansion overlooking the city skyline, where the windows stretched from floor to ceiling, and chandeliers dripped with crystals worth more than most people's homes. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale. Inside, it was a prison made of gold. Each morning began with routine elegance. A soft knock on the door, breakfast on a silver tray, a perfectly ironed note from Daniel's assistant listing his schedule for the day. I would eat alone, surrounded by silence so heavy it felt alive. The staff spoke in whispers, as if joy wasn't allowed inside those walls. Daniel left early, often before sunrise, chasing business deals while I drifted through the mansion like a ghost in designer heels. I had a closet full of luxury and a heart full of emptiness. People envied me, but envy is built on illusion. At charity galas, I smiled for cameras, my arm locked in Daniel's as flashbulbs exploded. They called us the power couple. They didn't see the way his hand tightened slightly when I spoke too long, or the distance in his eyes when I looked at him. He wasn't cruel, just cold. Everything he did was measured, controlled, predictable. Our marriage was a transaction sealed with diamonds. Sometimes, I'd walk through the mansion at night when everyone was asleep. The sound of my heels echoing against marble was the only proof I still existed. I'd stop by the window, looking out at the world below, people walking, laughing, living. I envied their freedom. They didn't have a driver waiting, a stylist controlling their appearance, or a schedule filled with social obligations. They had something I had lost long ago: authenticity. One night, while Daniel entertained investors in our private lounge, I sat quietly by the piano. My reflection in the polished surface looked like a stranger, flawless but hollow. The conversation behind me was full of laughter, deals, and expensive lies. I pressed one key softly, letting the note linger, hoping maybe he'd notice. He didn't. He never did. That night, I went to bed with my makeup still on, too tired to pretend anymore. I dreamed of running barefoot in the rain, something simple, something real. When I woke up, the emptiness was still there, heavier than before. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself writing again, pages filled with questions I couldn't answer. What is happiness if it isn't peace? What is love if it doesn't see you? My words became my only company. Then, one rainy afternoon, everything changed. I was sitting in the backseat of my car, scrolling through meaningless messages, when the traffic suddenly stopped. Raindrops raced down the window like tears, and through the blur, I saw him, a man crouched beside a soaked cardboard box, shielding an old stray dog with his jacket. He had nothing, not even an umbrella, yet he smiled as the dog licked his face. Something inside me stirred. It was the first time in years I'd seen kindness that wasn't for show. I couldn't look away. My driver asked if I wanted him to move forward, but I told him to wait. That single moment, that image of quiet humanity, would haunt me long after the rain stopped. I didn't know it then, but my life was about to unravel. The woman who had everything was about to lose it all and finally discover what it means to be alive. The image of that man in the rain wouldn't leave my mind. For days, I kept thinking about him, the way he smiled despite the storm, the gentleness in how he covered that dog with his jacket. In a world where everyone I knew was obsessed with status and appearance, he seemed real. I didn't even know his name, yet something about him felt familiar, like a part of life I had forgotten. A few days later, I asked my driver to take the same route again. It was a cloudy afternoon, and my heart was racing for reasons I couldn't explain. When we passed the same intersection, I saw him again, sitting against the brick wall of an old bookstore, sketching something on a scrap of paper. His clothes were torn, his hands rough, but his expression, calm, thoughtful, drew me in. I told the driver to stop. He looked up as I approached. For a moment, I hesitated, clutching the umbrella like a shield. "Hi," I said softly. He gave a faint smile. Didn't expect to see someone like you here. His voice was calm but curious. I saw you the other day, I blurted out, instantly regretting how strange it sounded. He laughed, not mockingly, but gently. Most people don't remember faces out here, he said. But I guess I made an impression. We talked briefly, small talk about the weather, the city, nothing deep, but his words carried warmth I hadn't felt in years. When I offered him some food I had brought from the car, he shook his head. Thank you, but I already ate. Give it to someone hungrier. That stunned me. No one in my world ever turned down anything. It was always about more money, more power, more everything. But here was a man who had almost nothing, yet didn't want to take what he didn't need. Before I left, he told me his name, Michael. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed our short conversation in my head again and again. His eyes, the calm in his voice, the way he seemed so content despite his situation, it fascinated me. I realized how numb I had become, surrounded by people who measured worth in wealth. Michael didn't ask for anything from me, not even sympathy. He just talked to me like a human being. The next day, I went back. I don't know what I expected. Maybe that he wouldn't be there, maybe that he would forget me, but when he saw me, he smiled. Back again? He asked. Guess you didn't get enough of my boring company. I laughed, for real this time. It felt strange. I hadn't laughed like that in months. We talked longer this time. He told me bits about his life, how he used to paint, how he lost his home after a series of bad decisions and misfortunes. Yet, there was no bitterness in his words. Life teaches you to value moments, he said, not possessions. Those words hit me harder than I expected. When I returned to the mansion that evening, Daniel was in his office, talking numbers as always. I watched him from the hallway, his face lit by the glow of his computer screen, and realized we lived in different worlds. One had everything but felt empty, the other had nothing but carried peace. As I went to bed, I opened my journal again and wrote, I think I met someone who reminds me what it means to feel alive. I didn't know it then, but I was stepping into a story that would change every part of me, one that would cost me everything I thought I needed to find what I truly wanted. In the days that followed, seeing Michael became part of my routine, a secret piece of my world that felt real amidst all the artificial perfection. I told no one, not even my assistant, where I went. My driver assumed it was charity work, and I didn't correct him. I just needed to feel human again, and somehow, Michael gave me that. He was always in the same place, near the old bookstore, sitting on the steps with his sketchbook. Every time I visited, he would show me what he had drawn, people walking by, birds on power lines, sometimes the city skyline under the rain. His drawings were beautiful but raw, imperfect in a way that made them feel alive. One afternoon, he handed me a sketch. It was me, sitting beside him, holding an umbrella, looking away. I stared at the paper, speechless. You drew me, I whispered. He smiled. You looked sad that day, he said. But not broken. I don't know why, but those words went straight to my heart. No one had looked at me like that in years. We started talking about everything, dreams, regrets, the little things that make life worth living. He told me how he used to paint for galleries until he lost everything after his business partner betrayed him. I thought success would fix me, he said quietly. Turns out it broke me instead. I could relate more than I cared to admit. With every visit, my world began to shift. The mansion started to feel colder, while the streets near that bookstore began to feel like home. I'd bring coffee, sandwiches, sometimes art supplies. He never asked for anything, but he always thanked me like I had given him the world. One day, I asked him, "Aren't you angry? At life? At people?" He shrugged. "Anger keeps you stuck," he said. "Gratitude moves you forward. I wake up every day, and if I can smile, I'm already rich." His words stayed with me long after I left. Back at home, Daniel noticed I was different. "You've been distracted lately," he said one night over dinner. His tone wasn't concerned. It was suspicious. "You're hiding something." I froze. "Just tired. I replied quickly. He studied me with those calculating eyes. You should take better care of your image, Emily. People talk. That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back at me wore diamonds but had lost her soul somewhere along the way. I couldn't explain it. I just knew I was alive again when I was with Michael, and dying a little more every time I came home. The next week, I found Michael painting a small mural on an abandoned wall. The colors were vibrant, a sunrise over the city skyline. I asked him why he painted it there. He said, because beauty should exist where people least expect it. I smiled and told him, that's exactly how I feel when I see you. He looked at me quietly for a moment, then said, you don't belong to their world, Emily. You just forgot you had a choice. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just visiting him anymore. I was running toward something I didn't fully understand, and away from the life I thought I wanted. It was only a matter of time before the secret world I built began to crack. My visits to Michael had become the only moments of my day that felt real, but secrets have a way of finding light. One afternoon, as I was getting ready to leave the mansion, Daniel appeared by the door. His expression was cold and sharp. Where are you going? He asked. I froze. Just a meeting. I lied. His eyes narrowed. With who? You've been acting different lately. I mumbled something about charity work, but his silence told me he didn't believe me. That night, I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling while he slept soundly. My heart raced. I felt trapped again, cornered between the life I was supposed to live and the life I secretly longed for. Every time I thought about Michael, his smile, his simplicity, his peace, it only made the mansion walls feel tighter around me. A few days later, I found Michael painting under the bridge. The mural was almost finished, a sunrise breaking through dark clouds. It's beautiful, I said softly. He smiled. The light always wins in the end, he replied. I sat beside him, my hands trembling. Michael, do you ever wonder what it would be like to start over? Completely. He looked at me for a long time, then said, every day. But most people are too afraid to lose what's killing them. Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. I realized that was exactly what I'd been doing, clinging to comfort, to reputation, to a version of myself that no longer existed. That evening, I came home to find Daniel waiting in the living room. His phone was on the table, and on the screen was a photo of me, standing beside Michael. I felt my stomach drop. Who is he? Daniel asked quietly, too calmly. A friend, I whispered. His voice rose. A friend? Do you have any idea what people would say if this gets out? You think I'll let you destroy my name because you're bored? He stepped closer, his voice turning into a hiss. You live this life because of me. You'd be nothing without it. Something inside me broke. All the pain, all the silence, all the years of pretending, it all crashed at once. You're wrong, I said. My voice shook, but I meant every word. Maybe I'd have nothing, but at least I'd be free. He stared at me, stunned, then turned away. You're out of your mind, he muttered. Go ahead. See how long you last in the real world. I went upstairs, my hands trembling, my chest tight. I stood before the mirror one last time, looking at the expensive dress, the glittering jewelry, the flawless image that had cost me my soul. I took off the necklace, the ring, the heels. Every piece that tied me to that world fell to the floor like chains breaking one by one. Then I packed a small bag. Just a few clothes, my journal, and a photograph of my parents. When I stepped outside, the night air hit my face like freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. I didn't call anyone. I didn't leave a note. I just walked, through the silent streets, under the city lights, toward the only person who had ever seen me for who I truly was. When I found Michael, he looked up in surprise. Emily, what are you doing here? It's past midnight. I could barely speak. I left, I whispered. I couldn't stay there anymore. He hesitated for a moment, then pulled off his worn jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders. You really did it, he said softly. You actually did it. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I don't know what happens next, I said. But I can't go back. He smiled, that same calm, grounded smile that had once stopped me in traffic. "Then don't," he said. "You're free now." And in that moment, standing beneath the quiet hum of the city, wrapped in a stranger's jacket, I felt more alive than I ever had in my entire life. The first morning after I left felt surreal. I woke up in a small shelter, sunlight filtering through cracked blinds instead of silk curtains. There was no staff waiting outside my door, no phone buzzing with calendar reminders, just silence. But for once, it wasn't heavy or cold. It was peaceful. Michael sat by the window, sipping coffee from a chipped mug. "Morning," he said softly. I smiled. "Morning." Those two words, simple, ordinary, felt like a luxury money could never buy. The first few weeks were hard. I had traded marble floors for concrete ones, designer dresses for thrift clothes, expensive meals for bread and soup. Some nights, the chill bit deep into my bones. Other nights, I cried quietly, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But every time doubt crept in, I'd see Michael's face, calm, steady, unshaken, and I'd remember why I left. We started building something small but real. Michael found odd jobs, painting murals for cafes, repairing walls. I helped at a local community kitchen, serving food to people who reminded me of what I once overlooked. The first time I handed a plate to a child and saw their eyes light up, I felt a warmth I'd never known even in the richest corners of my old life. One afternoon, as we sat in the park sharing a sandwich, I asked him, "Do you ever miss it? Having more?" He smiled faintly. "More what?" I laughed. "You know, comfort, money, security." He shook his head. "Comfort can become a cage if it costs you your peace. Security doesn't mean freedom." I thought about that for a long time. My whole life, I'd chased the illusion of security, the perfect marriage, the flawless image, the approval of people who didn't really care about me. Now, I had none of those things. But I had something better. Choice. News of my disappearance made headlines for weeks. Billionaire's wife abandons marriage to live on the streets. Reporters camped outside my old home, friends called in disbelief, and my family begged me to come back. But I stayed silent. For once, I didn't need to explain myself to anyone. One day, I saw Daniel again. He found me at the community center, standing near the mural Michael and I had painted together. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in presence. "You can still come home," he said quietly. "We can fix this." I looked him in the eye and said, "Home isn't made of walls, Daniel. It's made of peace, and I already found mine." He left without another word. Watching him walk away, I realized how much I had changed. The woman he once controlled was gone. In her place stood someone who had lost everything and gained herself. Months passed. Michael and I eventually found a small apartment, old but cozy. We painted the walls together, filling them with color and laughter. There were days when we struggled to make rent, but there was always joy in the struggle because we faced it together. Sometimes, at night, I'd look out the window and see the city lights fly away, the same skyline I used to view from my mansion. It looked different now. Smaller, maybe. Or maybe I had just grown. Michael once said something that stayed with me. Love isn't about what you have. It's about what you give without expecting anything back. I finally understood it. I didn't leave a billionaire for a homeless man. I left emptiness for meaning. I left fear for freedom. I left a life that looked perfect for one that felt alive. Now, when I walk past the mirror, I still see the same woman, but her eyes tell a different story. They no longer reflect loneliness or doubt. They reflect courage. And sometimes, when the rain falls just right, I think back to that first day, the day I saw a man in the storm, shielding a dog with his jacket. I smile every time, because that was the day I saw love for the first time.